Bill Steele.
3, 2, 1.
Here we go. Good morning, good people. Welcome to A to Z Sports Live, presented by the Cochran Firm and Boston Scientific. We're streaming live on YouTube and Facebook. And, of course, I am your host, Will Skywalker Steele. Boom! Deja vu. I promise y'all, today we will talk about the Cowboys' defensive tackle situation. Y'all will not make me pivot today. Now, we'll dive in part 3 of our hindsight series. Again, yesterday I said I got a surprise cut and a guy that should obviously come back. We'll detail all of that from top to bottom, every single last player on this team. I briefly touch on guys who aren't here, but mostly of those who remain on this team are free agents. Not much of a roundup, though, Cowboys Nation. Not much of a roundup. You got some wild news coming out of Arizona, but other than that, we'll jump straight into today's topic. And if you want to call in and talk about, see, I already in there talking about it. I already see y'all in here conversating about what to do with this player, that player. So that's good. We're already getting that conversation drawn up. I'll briefly touch on some draft prospects and free agent prospects in the roundup, but we want to save that probably for next week or so, where we can go into more detail, even break down some film on some of these guys. Today is going to be about reviewing the Cowboys defensive tackle situation. And if you want to call in, you can. 351-999-3787. And we could talk about it, Cowboys Nation. Or should I say Bomb Squad? Shout out to y'all.
Bomb Squad!
Y'all the best. Y'all the best. Before we do that, I don't know if it's because the team that's in the Super Bowl this week and I'm kind of being a little bit of a hater. I haven't watched any Super Bowl coverage. I'm purposefully, diving into everything Dallas Cowboys, some draft stuff, and right now, basketball. What's good, Lee? Like, NBA is overshadowing everything happening right now down at Arizona with the LeBron James breaking the record. You got Kyrie Irving getting traded to the Mavs, which is funny because I said that I want to go see Kyrie and Luka, and boom, Vach hit me up last night. Yo, we gotta go see Kyrie and Luka. Playoffs, baby. Let's do it. And then KD, Kevin Durant gets traded, and today's a trade deadline in the NBA, and this isn't an NBA show, but I think it's exciting to see all this happening. Trade deadline in NBA is way better than the trade deadline in the NFL, and you can see it, and it might not be done. Maybe the Lakers make a move. Maybe the Suns make another move. We'll see. But damn, KD, Kyrie, LeBron, all in consecutive days is craziness. It's just madness. It's exciting. And I'm excited to see what happens in the second half of the NBA season. But that's pretty much what's happening right now during the Super Bowl week. I don't know nothing about a game. I don't even know the teams that's playing. They say something about 2 black quarterbacks. I don't know. I don't recognize one of the teams. So I'm just saying, I want to talk about a little NBA. We could do that. Forget the Super Bowl. All right, let's get into the roundup.
It's time! It's time! It's time! It's time! It's time! It is time for...
It's time for the morning roundup. Round 'em up, boys.
Hey, yo. Hey, Uncle Michael Irvin, man. This dude can't stay out the goddamn on media. So, I don't know. There's a story down there, and I'm not going to go super TMZ. But the reason why it's an interesting story is because it seems like Michael Irvin pretty much spilled the beans on his own story. So, Irv has been pulled from the NFL Network Super Bowl coverage down there in Arizona because apparently an altercation, he say, she say, whatever, in the lobby of one of the hotels down there. Thing is, nobody knew about this altercation until Michael Irvin went on 105 through the fan, and pretty much told everybody about it. He said, quote, honestly, I'm a bit baffled with it all. This all happened in a 45-second conversation in the lobby. When I got back after going out, I came into the lobby, talked to somebody. I talked to this girl. I don't know her, and I talked to her for about 45 seconds. We shook hands. Then I left. That's all I know. Apparently, this is on video footage. He hasn't seen it. And once he went on there and talked about this altercation or conversation, and then he admitted as well, well, I don't quite remember because I was drinking my son. Mike, why are you admitting you drinking on? Who's in Mike's ear? You know how Mike get when he get the laugh. A little bit of it. Come on, man. Who's in Mike's ear? Not only did you go on the radio and tell everybody that you was out here talking to people in the lobbies when nobody cared, then you admitted you was drinking and you don't remember. Mike. God. Yes, you might have my son. Damn, Mike. Not this week. They already getting on the Cowboys. You know how every time something happened with Michael Irvin, it come back to Dallas Cowboy fans. Well, we won't be seeing Michael Irvin for the Super Bowl coverage. We'll see what happens in the following weeks. Hopefully nothing crazy. Pulling for you, Mike. All right. Simple question. And then we can go ahead and get into this thing here. Is the Dallas Cowboys defensive tackle situation once again a need, a sneaky need? Yes or no? And then we'll dive all the way into it. Texas T said, tell Mike to call the Cochran Law Firm. Got somebody for you, Mike. My guys Larry and Brian will hold it down. That's funny. Yes. Once again, I have to put again because it was a need last year, in my opinion. Yes, indeed. DEDT is a glaring need. Ooh, Army Mom. You said DE is a glaring need. Interesting. Defensive line is more 100% a very sneaky need. I'd probably prioritize defensive tackle though, Cowboys Nation. And there's a handful of guys in this draft. I mean, you seeing right now, is it Siaki? Is it Ika? Obviously, the Jalen Carters and Brian Breezes might not be there for you. You got the defensive tackle kid from Pittsburgh. Is it Cansey? Undersized cat. There's some defensive tackle prospects. I'm looking for a big boy, though. Looking for a big boy. And then the big fish, the big name in free agency is Deron Payne. We will talk about all of these guys in our free agent primer and leading up for the draft. But the reason why I brought up the Oregon guy, I have him here, because we briefly talked about him yesterday on Vacha's show. And I said, man, perfect timing because I wanted to talk about defensive tackle. And I took a look at him and the Pittsburgh kid just to kind of just get started with that situation. And as I'm watching these players play and these prospects do their thing, I came back to that question I asked you guys. Is this defensive tackle situation a sneaky need? And I say yes. It 100% is a need for the Cowboys. Not just because of the guys they could potentially be losing, but I only think there's a handful of guys in that room that you could legitimately count on week in, week out to perform at a high level. And shout out to Dan Quinn, because Dan Quinn can mask so many things for your defense because he's that guy. Like we know we have a Micah and a Diggs and a D-Law, right? But when you have a team that leads the NFL in turnovers 2 years in a row, when you got a top 10 unit, you would think there's just Pro Bowlers littered all over the place. That's not necessarily the case. You got guys who are journeymen. You got guys who are just Jags. You got guys who are role players, but I think Dan Quinn helps elevate these guys because he's Dan Quinn. And that's no different from the defensive tackle situation. It was mostly masked in that second half of the year because they brought in a guy and they switched some things up. But early on, that run defense was weird. And I don't put it all on the defensive tackles. I don't. But I would have liked to have one of those dudes, right? And Dallas just didn't have that early on. I think you were getting a lot of the production from the defensive ends, and your defensive tackles were kind of just doing their jobs per se. And we were having conversations too many times on this channel about the linebackers, right? And maybe that'll continue next year. But I feel like Dallas, there's positions the Cowboys don't value high enough. We talk about safety. We talk about defensive tackle. We made jokes when they drafted Quentin Bohanna, which we'll get to here in a second. He was the first nose tackle they drafted, period, really. I want to say since 2000, 2001. I forget the dude's name. I did a whole segment on that guy or the situation when we drafted Bohanna. He was seriously the first true nose tackle, defensive tackle like that the Cowboys have drafted. They've drafted, Ratliffs of the world and the Spears who played, 5-tech or whatnot, but they hadn't drafted that kind of guy in forever because they didn't put any emphasis on it. Dan Quinn comes in. They finally start to draft that guy. They went out and signed that guy. Same thing with the safety position. Dan Quinn comes in. They take the safety position a little bit more serious. I'm wondering if they take that next step, right? Because I think you got to have one or two of those guys in the middle or a plethora of those guys in the middle. I look at the Chiefs. I mean, we always go back to the team in the Super Bowl. Look at the Chiefs. Chris Jones, one of the best in the league. You look at the Eagles. They got a ridiculous rotation of these dudes in the middle. You go look at the Bengals, who were in the AFC Championship game. They got the kid that was giving us trouble in week 2. There's a DJ Reader. I think that was his name. I think we have a young guy that we hope can play his way into that. And I think that he has the talent to do so, but I think he needs a running mate, and we'll talk about that. And maybe he even needs to get somebody that could push him as well. I don't think the defensive tackle position is in a state where you don't have to bring anybody in to push any. Everybody can be pushed on this unit. Nobody is quote unquote secure. You got guys who play better, who play well, who had semi-breakout seasons. You obviously bring them back. They're obviously starters, but none of these guys are Pro Bowlers. None of these guys are constant difference makers, so they can be upgraded from. And that's where you get free agency. That's where you potentially get the draft all involved. So this unit, it still remains one of those units the Cowboys just haven't quite been able to put their hands on since, to be honest, Jay Ratliff left. And we keeping it a bean. So let's break it all down. And I want to start from the top with Quentin Bohanna. Big Bo came in last year. We talked about there was a little bit of pressure on Bo to show something. And I think he did that in training camp. In fact, he took somebody's spot, which we'll get to here in a second. But I think Bo is what he is, right? He's a 6th-round pick who does nose tackle things. Big body. A guy you don't really want out there for 20, 25, 30 snaps. Reserve role player. And he's a guy I think you bring back for that same exact reason, right? Big body, role player, somebody to push in camp. You bring some competition in to push Bohanna in camp. There's no need to necessarily cut a Quentin Bohanna per se because he's not saving you any money or anything like that. But he's also one of those guys that are not secure. Now, there's maybe 2 or 3 of these dudes that are, but he's not secure in my opinion. Now, that doesn't mean Bo didn't play better this year. He actually played better this season than he played last year. I'm not down on a Quentin Bohanna because I don't have high expectations for a Quentin Bohanna. You know what I mean? But the beginning of the season, I think you saw the competition when it was added in the cat from Arkansas. Now, he didn't stay, but I thought you saw Bo kind of have a different gear at camp. And that gear ended up pushing him into a quote unquote starting, quasi starting role by taking Neville Gallimore's spot. And if we're talking about a surprise cut, that was my guy. Well, you might say, well, Sky is a 3rd round pick. Why would you cut Neville Gallimore? He's going into his 4th year. He was supposed to break out last year. Yeah, he was supposed to do all of that. I think he had a underwhelming season. Obviously, Quinn Bohanna took his spot. And then you saw Neville get shopped at the trade deadline. And then you saw Neville, be a healthy scratch multiple times this season. So it's not just me kind of down on Neville Gallimore's season, but the front office is down on Neville Gallimore. He ended up finishing the season 5 straight games without a stop. And he never really was a threat as a pass rusher or a run stopper, for being completely honest. And look at Bo. Bo's not a major difference maker, but he had a stop in 9 of the 13 games he played in. There was times you'd be like, oh, I didn't even know Neville was out there. And that's sad because I thought Neville Gallimore would take that next step given some of the competition that's been thrown at him. But not necessarily the case. So I could definitely see them deciding to just move on from Neville Gallimore, depending what they do in the draft and free agency. Because whatever they decide to do in the draft and free agency will tell us more about some of these young guys that they have. Clearly. But one of the vets that I think has a chance to come back, and I will 100% look to bring him back on another short intermediate deal, was Carlos Watkins. Carlos Watkins got called up about a quarter of the way into the season, and he delivered immediately. In fact, it didn't take him long to be better than Bo, to be better than Neville. And that's why I think you saw Neville kind of get that healthy scratch from time to time, because Los was there. Los got signed last year, was a surprise, solid role player. This year, again, surprise, solid role player. He did admit, though, he was surprised when he got cut, but they were able to sneak him back on the practice squad. And when you look at the postseason, Los was pretty damn solid in the postseason as well. Now, you're not going to axe, when I say axe, I mean literally cut this unit all the way down prior to the training camp and mini camps and whatnot. So you're going to bring some guys back. I put Los on that list. You're losing nothing by signing Carlos Watkins to another 1-year cheap deal. You're losing nothing. You're gaining more than you're losing. Sign them. Let them compete. Let them push these young guys. Let them be kind of that veteran in the locker room. And if you get one of these young guys that beat them out, great. Y'all often hear me say this during camp all the time. I would love for these veterans to get beat out by these young guys because it is a meritocracy and not because of politics. So I can see these two swap, and I can see Neville Gallimore being out and Los being brought back just by the way they handle things during the season. We'll get to the other 3 in a second here, but I kind of want to get into the chat and talk to some callers that called in. So I got Bo and Neville are on thin ice in a way, and I think Neville has the potential to be cut. Bo has the potential to come back but be pushed off the roster if you got guys coming that you draft or sign. But I think Carlos Watkins definitely should be brought back on a cheap veteran deal and let him compete. I don't think he's done anything the last 2 seasons to say he's not good enough to compete for a roster. How are we feeling here? Let's get into the chat right quick. And DJ said, hell yeah, he was surprised. You saw what the other dudes was doing. He came out and was like, I was shocked. I was shocked too, because when I was down there, I was like, Los looks like a guy that's part of this rotation. But we also know how they covet draft picks. So I kept saying guys like Big Country. I'm like, he's going to make this team because he was a draft pick, but he was, without a shadow of a doubt, your worst defensive tackle in training camp. And that could be partly not his fault due to all the guys that have a higher draft pedigree, were better, were playing better. It just is what it is. Where they dropped the ball was not just putting this man on IR. or vice versa, right? Not putting Dak on IR and just keeping Big Country and seeing if he can develop a little bit. That was the most annoying part of getting rid of Big Country, in my opinion. Not that I'm going to cry about losing Big Country. It was just you could have easily kept Big Country by doing a number of different things, by putting him on IR, putting another guy on IR, cutting Josh Ball. But you decided to cut him, which shocked me because they value those picks. Gallimore dropped off 100%. That's why you don't draft Canadians. Come on, man. If we can sign a big defensive tackle, says Brian, I hope we draft one high if one's worth getting. What's high to you, right? Like, high to us probably is round 1 or 2. The Cowboys haven't drafted a defensive tackle in that round in I don't know how long, you know? So if they're going to get one of those big trash can full of dirt dudes, that's coming day 3. Don't even expect to see that in the second round. Maybe the third round, but that's likely coming day 3. So if they're going to take a DT in day 1 or 2, which I doubt is day 1, but in day 2, in the second or third round, I think it's going to be of the 3 techie, situation, not necessarily the 1 tech nose tackle types. Captain says I would have kept Ridgeway over Gallimore. I mean, hindsight 2022, I probably would have too, because you got a guy who's going to be on a 4-year deal, developmental guy, and you pretty much seen what Neville is, and Neville doesn't seem like he's taking that next step to be one of them dudes. He seems to be lost in translation, kind of lost in the rotation of defensive tackles. Usually you see a guy in year 3 kind of take that step. I didn't see that with Neville. All right, let's take a couple calls here, and we'll get back into the chat. The Pulse of Nation hotline presented by the Cochran Firm. Hey, man. Mike, if you need somebody, Larry will holla at you. Brian will holla at you. They handle the most challenging civil cases in the DFW area, or if you're stuck in Arizona. And all their civil cases are handled on a contingent fee basis, meaning there is no financial recovery. If there is no financial recovery, they charge no fee. And I'm talking personal injury, wrongful death, fraud, truck, automobile accidents, class action lawsuits, whatever, you name it, they got you. So hit them up at 1-800-THE-FIRM or schedule your free consultation today at CochranTexas.com. Got 267 on the horn. What's good? We don't wipe them 304s. What up, man?
Absolutely. We never do that.
Definitely not in Arizona, but go ahead.
Yeah, Mike's got to take my advice, man. So 2 things. One thing that I hope the Cowboys do going into next season is that they don't waste roster spots like they did this year. Like, Josh Ball should not be on this team. Like, you just talked about it. Like, the fact that Terrence Steele went out and we had to make all these arrangements because Josh Ball couldn't step in and do his job really tells you that he shouldn't be on the team in the first place.
Yeah, sometimes you just got to swallow your pride and say, hey, Josh Ball is just a wasted 4th round pick. But, we joked about yesterday with Okoye, hey, they don't hold on to XYZ type of guys, but they definitely do cherish their picks because they know they have to hit. So we got to see it through type of situation.
Oh, yeah, 100%. But, I mean, even if he were to go on the practice squad or something like that, I don't think anybody would have picked him up. I agree. I don't know why they were so hesitant to do it.
Draft pedigree, man. Draft pedigree. But, I would love to ask who might have made that call. Y'all think McClay made that call? I would ask Will McClay. Maybe I might ask him next year or this offseason. What went into keeping Josh Ball over Ridgeway? I just want to know.
Yeah, definitely. And when it comes to the defensive line, I think it's definitely a need. And it might not seem as glaring as the other needs that we have on this team. But, I mean, look, the way the Cowboys need to approach this offseason is they need to focus on beating Philadelphia, just like how teams in the AFC West focus on beating the Chiefs.
Do you have me on speaker or something? The people say they can hardly hear you.
Oh, maybe because I'm in a large room.
Gotcha.
Let me see if I can do it real quick, and then I'll. Can you hear me better now?
I can hear you.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah, what I was saying is like they need to build a team to beat Philadelphia, and the way you do it is, I mean, you got to build up those trenches because they're solid on both sides of the line of scrimmage, and I think that if you're going to lose or if you're going to be able to get all this cap space from restructuring Dak, cutting Tyron Smith and doing what you have to do, getting rid of Zeke, then you need to put some of that capital towards that defensive line because the Eagles are good on both sides of the line of scrimmage on purpose because they've invested in both those sides of the line of scrimmage, and I hope that the Cowboys take that same approach this offseason.
100%, Chris. And I'm going to touch on that in a second.
Yeah. Well, all right, Scott, I'll talk to you, bro.
Appreciate you, brother. Yep. I agree with that 110%. And we talked about this yesterday. We were talking about the running back position. I'd much rather put the capital in the offensive line because then I can plug a running back there with a quality scheme and I'll be fine. Again, man, you look at the teams that are in these situations, they put that capital towards it. I mean, we know the famous offseason that the Chiefs had, and with the offensive line, they went out and said, "Oh, we got old guys," and then they got hurt, and we watched what a defensive line did to Pat Mahomes in the playoffs. No, sir. Go trade me a guy and go sign me a guy, and we're going to draft a guy. All in the same offseason. Philly is notorious for their trenches. I mean, the entire Dak and Tony Romo era, we've had to deal with good offensive lines and good defensive lines. And I think it's what has kept them kind of competitive and easier, if you think about it, to do these two rebuilds because they have a solid foundation. They know, okay, we're going to win or lose in the trenches. So as long as we keep replenishing the trenches, it's easier to place these other guys around. And we know what the Eagles' offense and defensive line looks like. So I'm with you, Chris. Build up those trenches. I mean, I know it's cliche, right? You win the game in the trenches. Yeah, it's cliche for a reason. Dallas knows this because they invested so many players on the offensive line. The thing that they just don't invest in is defensively. And I would love to see them kind of turn that page a little bit and spend a little bit of money on that defensive line. $559, what it is, what it do?
Okay.
I'm good, man. How are you?
Good. So you just talked about that topic right now, the defensive line. I think it starts in the trenches, man.
Yep.
We need to rebuild that offensive line, defensive line. I think we'll be good. I think Dak will be all right for another 2 years. He's not a horrible quarterback. I just think they need to put some talent around him because he's not a Mahomes.
No,
we just need to accept that. And that's it, man. Thank you.
Yep, appreciate the call, man. 100% damn sure ain't no Mahomes. I agree with you there. Build up the trenches. It'll help everybody out. Quarterback, running back, receivers, all that stuff. Danny said Philly will draft the Oregon kid, put him next to Jordan Davis. Good luck. Well, if they do that, I mean, I'll just run to the edges on them because those two dudes are huge dudes, but they're not guys that I think are going to go solid. And I know Jordan Davis ran like a 4.8, but Jordan Davis is still more of a penetrating defensive tackle than a sideline guy, 4.8 or not. You get him 10 plays in, he a little bit trouble. But Philly's going to definitely replenish their defensive tackles and their O-lines for sure. For sure. All right, let's get Marv, and then we'll let the phones build up a little bit more, and we'll finish our last three guys to recover. Marv, I knew this topic would interest you, man. You like the defensive line.
Yeah, I like the defense. I like that guy Keone from Wisconsin, and the big guy Kia from Baylor.
Yeah. So did I say Oregon? I keep saying Oregon. My bad. It's the Baylor kid. Apologies, squad. So you like the Baylor kid? You like the Clemson kid? Is it Clemson Breeze? Breeze is it?
Yeah, Wisconsin.
Oh, Wisconsin.
Yeah.
So not
I
Brian
think his
Breezy.
name was it Kiana? Kiana. I don't know his last name.
Yeah, I'm not sure. I'm not deep yet. I just got kind of the top guys right now.
Yeah, he's a beast, man. I'm like, and I be watching how he penetrate, and he be getting in there. And your boy never did that. Gallimore.
Yeah.
They was dogging him. I was like, man, what is this?
Yeah, and Gallimore was supposed to be the penetrating 3-tech. He was supposed to be that pass rushy type guy. And then he had to put on some weight because they wanted him to do some more things, and it just never carried well.
Never carried with him. So, but I was telling Law, I'd rather either Payne. That's my first. That's all you need to sign. If you sign Payne, I'm happy because they're gonna take the defense up to number one defense, or Thomason from Minnesota. And both of them Alabama boys. So if you get one of them, we're on our way. And still drop the big D tackle because they're going to help your edges. Because you got to remember, you still got the Cleveland guy that we got back, who they always love from UCLA, the DN.
Boy, I don't know what you're talking about.
Cleveland. It's the defensive end the Cowboys picked up, remember? But they never played him.
Tack McKinley?
Wanted him. Yeah.
Oh, brother, we ain't factoring Tack McKinley in nothing.
Well, I'm just saying though, they're good. He would, you know how your boy Quinn know how to coach them guys up. So, but the key is the D tackle. We make that D tackle cold blooded. Our defense is gonna be a top 5 defense. You know what I'm saying? So that's what I want. I know everybody. I want Payne though.
Yeah. That's kind of my. If I had a dream free agent pickup, Deron Payne's my guy. I wanted Tomlinson last year, Payne this year. You see the year before that, I forget who it was, but it was a defensive tackle. It's kind of a theme. I think it was Phillips, the cat that used to be in Buffalo. But I'm always wanting one of those disruptive DTs for sure.
You got to do it. Finally got to do it. If they do that, I know you'll be like, oh, Jerry Jones them did it.
Yeah, listen. Exactly. You spend a little bit of money. I ain't asking him to do nothing too crazy, Mark, but you can spend a little bit of cheese. I don't need you to spend $300 million. You can spend a little cheese, though.
But we need that D tackle because if they get him, man, that whole defense will go to another level. Wow. And then drop another D tackle, that'll do it. That's all I have to say.
All right, man.
Good show.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate
you. Thanks. Bye-bye.
Let me ask you a question. Because this next guy I want to talk about, he showed some improvement towards the end of the season, put on some damn good film in Chauncey Golston. And when Dan Quinn starts to talk about you in these press conferences, the way Dan Quinn talks about you, and boy, if Dan Quinn talk about you, he likes you a lot. Chauncey got drafted a couple years ago, to me, as more of a 5-tech type of defensive end. And they said, we need you to put on some weight. Slide in and play more defensive tackle. Still could be obviously a 5-tech, and this is a multiple front defense. Chauncey did that, was an absolute massive human being out there. Every time you see him, I couldn't believe that's Chauncey Golston. Dude was huge. And I thought he'd start putting on some really good film in that second half of the season. To the point where there's like, hey, Neville, you can sit down. I don't really need you. I wonder if Golston, if he's going into that year 3 type of ascension. I don't necessarily look at Golston as that 3-tech penetrating, lethal, quick first step type of guy, but a guy that can use his length. A poor man's Jason Hatcher. Remember Jason Hatcher? 6'7", long. Now, he did use some of his quickness, but when you slide a guy like Chauncey inside, their quickness is better against guards than it would be against tackles. But if he rounded into a Jason Hatcher, and I'm not even talking about the 11-sack first-year Rob Marinelli Jason Hatcher. Like, that would be excellent. But I'm just talking about that Jason Hatcher was a guy that you can count on every game. A solid guy. I take that with Chauncey. Now, I said there were a handful of dudes that I think are quote unquote safe. When I use the term safe, I don't mean like if they can't be replaced, but I feel like these next three guys are guys that should be safe to the point of, okay, not only am I just safe for this roster, but I'm competing to start. I'm competing to be that guy. I think Chauncey year 3 could be an interesting player to watch moving forward based on how he played in the second half of the season. And I'm not saying he was, a Pro Bowler or anything like that, but he put on some really good tape. He was doing some disruptive things. He was creating pressure, getting in the backfield, using his length. You saw him kind of mature a bit as a player. So of all these guys, I think Golston is the one I put that asterisk next to the most because there's just something about him that could be, even if he's just a quality rotation dude, that's a dub for a 3rd round pick. That's a dub. Michael Bennett type guy, says King Element. Chauncey did great those last 3-4 games, says Brian. Yeah, I think he put on some good tape. James says I will keep him. 100% keep him. King Element says he's very underrated. What's good, bro? Rory in the building. Yes, sir. Smoke dropped $2 in the super chat and said,
Super chat.
This is a deep class this year. Can't front. Army Moms thinks Big Bo would be the cut. Absolutely could end up being. I think Neville or Big Bo could be one of those guys, but I don't think either of them will get cut anytime soon. I feel like those guys, obviously, you keep them, you get to mini camp, training camp, see what's up. Quinnen Williams, I don't think he's going nowhere. I think they're going to keep Quinnen. Chauncey Golston, man. I think there's something to Chauncey that could, maybe he could start next year. I don't know. We'll see. But the guy that absolutely has to return, right, Cowboy? Like we can't even play around with this one. This is Jonathan Hankins. The run defense was borderline night and day when Jonathan Hankins got brought onto this team. I don't got the exact numbers. Professor O had dropped one a while ago. Let me see if I can find that graphic. It was towards the end of the season when Jonathan Hankins was on the field compared to when he was off the field. Same thing with Quentin Bohanna. You saw the run defense was better when these guys were on the field as opposed to when they were off. But the sheer volume numbers prior to Jonathan Hankins coming and after, you can't dispute it. And I don't think Hankins is going to cost you a ton of money. So I would 100% look to bring him back on a short 1 to 2 year deal that doesn't cost you a ton. You can get out of if you want to, which I don't think you would have the need to do so, because even during his last days in Oakland, in Las Vegas, it wasn't like he was a bad player. They just had other young guys they wanted to play and said, let's see if we can get some draft capital. He is, at the end of the day, a veteran that isn't a part of the future. And again, you're not going to gut this entire unit. So you got to bring guys back. And I think Hank is a guy you bring back, man. You saw him not only be able to handle double teams like he's been able to do throughout his career, but he was causing traffic accidents. I always use that analogy for my defensive tackles. I need you to cause the accidents. Make these running backs reroute. Hell, run into the damn running backs. Hank was a problem for a lot of these teams. The thing is, though, he doesn't really provide you any pass rush type of situations. And once you get into, spreading the ball out, he can push you with pure strength. But you don't really have that dominant pass rushy guy outside of the next dude we're going to talk to. And I'll use the word dominant loosely because I wouldn't consider it dominant. But he was your best guy. And that's Osa. And if we're going to move forward with a Jonathan Hankins, I think these are your starters until you go out into the draft. I mean, to free agency. Like, if you're going to get guys in free agency, then we change the conversation. But if you were coming back with this unit, Hank and Osa, and I'm not even thinking twice about it. Because I do think Osa needs kind of that running mate in the mold of a Jonathan Hankins. Now, we can upgrade from him. I would love to upgrade from a Jonathan Hankins. That'd be a good thing for the Cowboys. But Osa is going to be your starting 3-tech on his team. I think he's earned it. I think he's... The funny thing is, if you look at his stats compared to last season, it's not like he exploded on the scene. But you can see Osa, excuse me, in these spurts. You'd be like, that is why he was drafted in the third round. That's why he has that high ceiling, because he gives you that ultra athletic, kind of undersized 3-tech who played wrestling, knows leverage, super high motor. And he was, without a shadow of a doubt, your best defensive tackle in the postseason. I personally thought Osa was going to be given a bit more responsibility this year to just go out there and just work dudes. But I said it's a bunch on this show. It seemed to me like the defensive tackles were more part of doing stunts. The Cowboys ran stunts more than any team in the NFL, and it wasn't even close. And usually these defensive tackles were assigned to create for the defensive ends, which, right? The defensive tackles compared to the D-Laws and the Micahs and the Fowlers and who am I missing? The Armstrongs, right? Like, that unit was clearly the better unit. So you use those guys to create for them. But when they just said, hey, Osa, go get him, I was like, man, Osa can do it. I thought Osa would be Dan Quinn's Grady Jarrett. But Dan Quinn is not running the same defense that he ran in Atlanta. But if you ask Osa to be that pass rushy guy, I think Osa can do it. And I would love to see them kind of allow him to spread his wings a bit next year. Give him a running mate, but let him spread his wings a little bit next year, man. I think he has a potential to be more disruptive than your regular stunt double. I use stunt double joking around, but he did. He was a guy that was helping create stunts, playing games and getting guys open. And then third down, do your thing, Osa. But 26 stops, 31 pressures, 4 sacks and a forced fumble for basically a part-time rusher is nothing to sneeze at from the interior. So he was your best defensive tackle. I don't particularly think it was close. Hankins came on late, so you could throw Hankins in there. But when you look at the unit as a whole, I don't know how we can come away and say this is not a need. There's one or two guys on here, and Golson is that asterisk I talked about because he has a potential. But there's one or two guys on here you can say, yeah, week in, week out, I know he's going to bring it. Other than that, you got a bunch of role players and a bunch of guys or a couple guys that you say, man, they might not be on this team next year. I don't like that. So maybe you got to address this situation in both free agency and the draft. DJ, good morning, good sir.
Hey, good morning, Scott. How you doing today, sir?
I'm good.
Good. All right, so there's a reason I kind of waited to call in because I think you just covered the part that I feel like is the most important, which is Osa, Jonathan Hankins, Chauncey Golston. Those three dudes, once they were all available, once Jonathan Hankins got here, it just took the defense to a whole another level, right? It took a very prominent weakness that the defense had, and it almost immediately eliminated it. And then, of course, once LVE came back, then, that was right around the playoffs, and then that's when we got the games that we got out of those guys.
Yep.
So, and I was also looking at the market, and all of these guys, like Chauncey and Osa. I'm sorry?
Nothing. You said you was looking at the market. I'm saying there's a lot of names on them in the market.
Oh, yeah. There's a lot of names on the market. My big thing is Deron Payne is at least the market value that they're projecting right now is $19 million. I'm like, oh, no, I can't. Not for a D-tackle. I mean, he's worth it. Don't get me wrong, but for this team, I don't like that idea. That's way too much money. Now, if you want to go out and get a Dalvin Tomlinson, who's like 8.5, by all means, do you.
He already
but I think you have this.
Is he getting cut or something? Am I tripping?
It had him on the list, you know. Now, if they're going to bring him back, then sure, right? We don't know what, if these teams, because the teams have the first.
I'm looking at the spot, right?
Dibs and all that.
Thomason is available on there, yeah.
Yeah. So his market's about 8.5. So hey, you want to do that? But I think the base guys that you have already are good enough, because all you need is somebody to keep bodies off of the linebackers. That way they can be fast and run around. And of course, if they make plays like Osa and Hankins did later in the season, by all means, that's just a cherry on top. But it's not necessarily a position that I would say you have to draft. I think you should draft D-line, D-tackles, inside and edge every single year, just like you should on the offensive line. I think you just need to keep a good rotation of guys anyway. But I wouldn't say that it's something that is the most prominent, like, oh, we got to handle this because there's nobody to fill those shoes right now.
I mean, technically there's not. I mean, again, we're doing this in February. And right now, Jonathan Hankins is a free agent. Your defensive tackles right now as we speak are Osa, Chauncey, Neville, and Quentin. There is no Carlos. There is no Jonathan Hankins. So technically, it 100% is a need. But depends what we do in free agency. It depends if you're bringing back Jonathan Hankins. It depends if you're bringing back Los. Depends if you're going out and signing one of these guys. If you do none of that, you definitely go into the draft with the blinking light glaring need, I think.
Well, actually, you just new fear unlocked just now, because when you said if they don't re-sign these guys, and historically, if we go over the past couple of seasons, this is definitely one of those situations where these guys don't get signed. So, for sure.
It's more of a put a pin in it situation, because we don't know what we're dealing with going into the draft, right? We just don't. You know?
Yeah.
But if they bring back Los and they bring back Jonathan Hankins, which seems to be up their alley, they like to cover their bases with guys like that, that changes the conversation completely. Now we're talking about getting one of these dudes in day 2 or in day 3, at the most the 3rd, 4th, 5th round, like they did last season. So it's kind of just putting a pin in it. We're reviewing the situation right now, but those dudes technically are free agents.
Well, yeah, we need to I need to see them get those two guys locked down. I was working with the assumption, like, it's such an obvious thing, which unfortunately this organization doesn't necessarily do the obvious shit all the time. So, but it's such an obvious thing that you bring back those guys that I was just like, hey, they're going to be here. They need to be here, because that's just something, it moves you 2 steps forward and will put you 5 steps back if you don't. So that's what, like, it's non-negotiable. Just get it done.
My approach would be, because they were like, listen, Los, Chauncey, Osa, Hankins were good enough given the situation for Dan Quinn in 2022. My thinking is always, but can I get better? Remember I said this last year? Yeah, you can bring XYZ back, but I'm trying to add to it. Can I get better? So my first order of business would be, well, how do I upgrade from that first? So if I'm hitting up a Dalvin Thomason, I'm hitting up a Deron Payne, a Javon Hargrave, who is an absolute beast. Like, I'm calling all these dudes. What y'all want? Does this work out? Then if that don't work out, then you pick up that phone and you bring those other 2 dudes back. But I'm 100% trying to upgrade. No, they play well. They're good veterans in Los and Hankins and whatnot. But they're not, in my opinion, game wreckers. I'm contacting some game wreckers to see if I can add to this team to upgrade. And if that doesn't work out, now let's bring back guys that we know we can trust and that can compete with some of these young dudes that we're going to draft, or young guys that we had last year. Does that make sense?
No, 100%. The only thing that I would say is, my point is that that's your floor, right?
Yeah,
You shouldn't even risk getting worse. Like, it's automatic that you bring, because both of those guys are veteran minimum type guys, right?
I think
it's not going to cost you all the money it's not going to cost you all the money in the world. So either way, you can still go out and try to get to a Deron Payne if that's what you want to do, but you should at least have the floor of these guys and move forward from there, because you know they're at least good enough to get the job done. If you could add to that level, 100%. But don't get worse just because you're trying to chase Deron Payne first. Is how I look at it.
Yeah, I don't think you're going to miss out on Los and Hankins because you chased Deron. Like I don't look at those guys as day one, free agents. Them dudes is going to be sitting around for a minute. Unless Dallas, because I think there's that weird time period where you can sign your own guys back prior to free agency. So unless Dallas just says, "Hey, here's my 1 year deal, here's my 2 year deal, whatever, come on back," so that could happen.
Well, and that's what I'm saying. I'm like, just go ahead and get them done. That way, you have that floor, and then move forward.
Indeed. Good call, DJ. Appreciate you.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let's get B Bird on the horn. What's good, B Bird?
Hey, nothing much, Scott. How you doing today, brother?
I'm good, sir.
Hey, so y'all kind of stole my thunder. I think there's DJ before where you said that those guys are free agents, because I'm looking when I hear people talk about D-line help. I'm saying, man, our D-line played well last year with Hankin and Osa and all those guys, because what I look at is how do we do it against playoff competition and in the playoffs? Our defensive line wasn't an issue. And so, as he said prior to this call, our floor is pretty good. And when you talk about signing Deron, well, I know we're saying was. I do understand what you're saying. I'm saying
they ain't here.
And let's just be real. We're not going to get into a bidding war for Hankins, nor are we going to get into it for who was it, Carlos, right?
Carlos Watkins, yep.
So I mean, what I'm trying to say is that those guys are free agents, but I mean, they're not going to demand a whole bunch of money out there. That's just what I'm saying. You go find a Payne, and then who you going to have at one technique? I mean, we've been looking for a one technique forever, and we found one. I mean, who are we going to get there?
Are you saying you don't think Payne can play next to Osa?
Is Payne a 1 or 3?
Payne could be whatever you want. He's a 6'3", 320-pound disruptor.
Okay. So when you pay, they say $19 million a year for him, then you're going to lose some things other places, correct?
Where? What other places?
As far as a cap. I mean, how are you going to sign a wide receiver? If you have to get another wide receiver.
Well, then now we're playing a game of who do we're just talking defensive tackle now. So who do you prioritize? A wide receiver trading, because this is what it's going to be. There's no big money wide receiver in free agency, or Deron Payne. That would be an either or. What do you want, a wide receiver or Deron Payne? Now that's a totally different question. But yeah, if you want to play that game, if you pay Deron Payne, you're not probably trading for a Keenan Allen or trading for a D Hop or a Cooks or what have you. So yeah, there's that.
And I guess in my mind that wide receiver position is a huge position for me.
So wide receiver would trump defensive tackle for you.
Oh yes, it would, especially if you let's just say this again. I preface this by saying if you sign the guys in line, if you sign the floor, as a caller before said, I think you do better there. I think we actually have, if I look at it, we have a bottom 5 wide receiver room right now. We just can't have that going forward if we're gonna for these next 2 years with Dak Prescott. You got to get some guys around him, and to me, that's going to cost some money, man. And I don't want to give that to Deron Payne. I know what kind of difference maker he is, but I don't know the difference between. I think the difference between a D Hop and a Noah Brown is vastly different than Hankins and a Payne. That's what I think about it.
Yeah, and when we did the wide receivers already, but I think the question now becomes: do you trust them to trade for a D Hop or one of those dudes, or do you trust them more to pay for Deron Payne in free agency? Two places that they are historically terrible at.
Actually, you're absolutely right. So, but one thing. Let me get to this next point because you bring in this up. I asked you the other day. Who pounds the table for free agents? And one of the things you kind of solved that for me when I was listening to your show earlier, when you said, "Hey, man, before Dan Quinn got here, we didn't take safety seriously, nor did we take defensive tackle seriously. But since he's gotten here, we've gotten those two positions kind of fortified." But it tells me that it can come from a coach. Well, it also tells me that Kellen Moore, he's more built hell bent on letting his system work that he's not going to. And that's one of the reasons he's here. He was there is because his system overrode players. So now that Mike McCarthy's in there and he kind of sees some things as far as the offense is concerned, I hope that he's the guy that goes and say, hey, man, I'm running this offense. This is what I'm going to need as wide receiver. You know what I'm saying? So hopefully that'll be I'm looking at the Dan Quinn, what he did, and he got some things changed. Hopefully now that Mike's taking over the offense, and he can go to the Joneses and say, hey, this is what I need, man. I need this guy, I need that guy, or something like that, and they'll listen like they did with Dan Quinn.
Yeah, I mean, but they didn't. I mean, they listened to Dan Quinn and got Dan Quinn a bunch of role players, a bunch of Marshall guys. You want McCarthy to go to him and say, I need a D-Hop, motherfucker. I need a Keenan Allen. And
you know it's wishful thinking too, right?
it is, but that's kind of what we are as Cowboys fans. It's a lot of wishful thinking. I think McCarthy will say, I want this type of receiver. I don't know if he'll say this specific receiver. I said this before. I think he's been conditioned from the Green Bay days where he was asking for guys and Ted Thompson said, no, that we're going to draft and develop, then that's what we're going to do. And that's why if you look at all their receivers, they were all drafted and developed over time between the Greg Jennings and the I always forget the white receiver's name. Always. And then Devontae Adams, Randall Cobb, Alan Lazard, like on and on and on. It's just draft and develop day 2, day 3 guys because they didn't spend money. And Mike didn't like it, right? But now he's coming to the Texas version of that. So I don't even know if he's going to have enough to really. He's not Sean Payton, right? He's not a guy I think that will cause some ruckus to get them type of players. So I wouldn't hold my breath on it, but I think he'll go in there and say, hey, if we're going to run this system, this is the type of receiver I want. Will McClay will get that information. He'll go scout, pro, and draft, and then he'll come back to Stephen Jones when it comes to the pro guys and say, hey, I'm just throwing a name out there, DJ Shark or whoever. Does this work for you financially?
Hey, and my last point, man, would be that you talked about something earlier. I actually said this yesterday. I was on Landlord's show. And a left O-line player, that's what I think I would love in the first round. I think that's just going to solidify the offense. And then what that does, and you said it again, you don't have to have elite running backs with your line is really good.
Yeah.
And so, you don't have to have that it player, because if you do draft that it player, Bijan or whatever, if he gets hurt, then what? Right now, he's been covering for the offensive line. Solidify the offensive line, and then let's go forward, because I think all you need is one. Man, if you get a bruiser on that left side, man, a big bully, and then you got Smith next to him, and then Biotis is good, and then we got the right side. We know what that's about. Man, we cooking with gas at that point in time, man. So I really would love to get a left offensive line player, man, and we just go forward from there, man. But I appreciate your time, Scott. You keep it up, brother. I appreciate you.
Thanks, bro. Appreciate you, B-Bird. Great conversation.
All right.
In fact, you inspired a poll. I am about to put this poll here. Wouldn't you rather? I'm gonna be a little bit easier on the trade compensation. Now I'm trying to be as realistic as possible with this. So I got a poll in here. Would you rather sign defensive tackle Deron Payne or trade a 2nd and 4th? Because I think this is what it would be about. A 2nd and 4th plus extend DeAndre Hopkins. I think you're going to have to do that. That's the reason why he wants to get out of there. So ask your community. I'm going to let y'all answer in this poll. And while y'all do that, we'll talk about Boston Scientific. Today's poll question is brought to you by Boston Scientific. And if you're one of 39 million men who suffer from ED, Boston Scientific created edcure.org to help you find your best cure. To get started, go to edcure.org, take a quiz, and learn your severity or risk of ED. If you have a condition that puts you at a higher risk, you'll find customized content on the website. It's the fastest way to find your best cure. Contact edcure.org, brought to you by Boston Scientific. Say it with me, Cowboys Nation. It ain't hard, but you can be.
You're listening to A to Z Sports.
Do it live!
At some point, hoping to broadcast
In front of the millions.
of Cowboys fans to bring you the real. But for now, strap up and here's your host, Skywalker Steele.
I'm Luke Skywalker. I'm here to rescue you.
We'll do it live.
I think this is a fantastic poll question right here. Deron Payne or trade? I think second 2 and 4 is realistic. I'm trying to be realistic with it. I think a 2 and 4 is realistic. But the extension part I think is key because I believe he's going to want to be extended. And it's a fair question because we obviously know the wide receiver position is, as we speak, a huge question mark outside of CeeDee Lamb. I think there's context to both too, right? You can say, well, the wide receiver position could technically get better with better health from Gallup, with a better scheme, right? Or you can say, well, shit, Deron Payne could be a game wrecker, which he absolutely was last year. And if you get a game wrecker in the middle of your defense, that takes your defense from being one of the best defenses in the league to being one of them ones that we always talk about. So it's a fun question because technically I think both positions are quote unquote needs of the team, but like B. Bird said, I don't think you can do both. My man said both of them, Sky. I don't think you can do both. You can do both, but I don't think the Cowboys would do both. Let me say that, right? You can 100% sign a Deron Payne to a long-term deal. His first year or two is not big cap hits and didn't trade for it. Now, that's all in. We'll talk about all-in approach. That's an all-in approach. That's not up Dallas's alley, though. Right now, 69-31 in favor of signing Deron Payne. Let me see what y'all talking about. How much do I think D-Hop is asking for? I mean, let's play that game. Let's go on ahead. Now we're talking numbers a little bit. Whew. I forgot he was getting paid that much. Shout out to, is this Matt Lennox? Is this the Matt Lennox? Indeed it is. Shout out to my bro Matt Lennox with the super chat, just dropping a dub and 10 in the chat.
Super chat.
For the love. I'm still trying to get our writer's block going, Matt, man. You know. Appreciate you, big dog. Make sure y'all check out his articles on A to Z Sports Dallas. Not only is on A to Z Sports Dallas, this man is on, I think he's writing for Cincy. I think he's writing for Pittsburgh. One of the hardest working writers out there, period. I ain't just talking about on the underground scene, just period. If y'all know how many articles this man wrote, go check him out. A to Z Sports Dallas and more. DeAndre Hopkins is getting paid $27 million a year. Well, sir, I don't think that's happening here. You would have to talk to D-Hop like, look, dog, we have to put that Jerry Jones on him. Hey, man, look, you come to Dallas, you got the endorsements, you got the national spotlight, you know, you can be a superstar. You know. You're going to have to sell him like they sold, you know, Jalen Smith. You know. We can put you in businesses, real estate. Because I don't think they're going to pay that man $27 million a year. So, yeah, I mean, I knew it was a lot of money, but I didn't know it was that high. I would love to have him. Don't get me wrong. I would definitely take a risk of spending a ton of money and it not working out. So I ain't going to be a hypocrite. But every time I think like that, I have to remember I'm a Dallas Cowboy fan and Stephen Jones and Jerry Jones are running the Cowboys. So with that said, the poll numbers have stayed the same relatively here. 68% Deron Payne, 32% in favor of trading for D-Hop. I think if you don't extend D-Hop, you can live with it, but I think he's looking for that. All right, let's lock these up. We getting a little bit close here. Who did I have next? 336. What it is, what it do?
what's up, man?
Good morning, good sir.
Hey, yeah, my name's Jim, man. I'm from North Carolina.
What's going on, Jim? From North Carolina. First time calling?
Yeah, it's my first time calling. Yeah.
Appreciate you calling in.
I appreciate it, man. Yeah, I've been a Cowboys fan for a long time. Telling my age a little bit, but I do pull for the Panthers against everybody else just because they're from North Carolina. But I was a Cowboys fan first, so I remain loyal.
I can dig it. You'll never find me pulling for the Pittsburgh Steelers or the Eagles because I'm from PA. I'm just saying, you know. But I feel you.
Oh. All right. So, quick question. I hear you talking about Deron Payne, and I know like one of our biggest weaknesses last year before we signed Hankins, the whole reason we traded for Hankins was run defense. Is he like really great against the run?
Oh, yes. I mean, I don't know if you the beginning of the show, well, not the beginning, but the second part of breaking down our DTs, I talked about how I think the run defense was night and day when the Cowboys got Jonathan Hankins. There was really only like one or two games, and I don't count the Bears game because when he was out there, the running backs averaged less than 3.5 yards per carry when Jonathan Hankins was out there. But the Packers game is really the only game they got ran on embarrassingly when I shouldn't even use the term embarrassingly, just productively when Jonathan Hankins was out there. The Jaguars game, he didn't play. So yeah, he was 100% a difference maker.
How was Deron Payne in comparison to that?
Deron Payne was in my opinion, all-pro this year, but you can only give that to a couple people. Deron Payne did everything at a high level. Like, if it wasn't for him and Jonathan Allen, Washington probably is not fighting for a playoff spot towards the end of the season. Like, they, in my opinion, carried that defense.
Right. I'm just thinking about, because we play Philly in our division, and they're excellent at running the ball, especially where it hurts. And so, like, if Payne is not the run stopper that Hankins is, then
Payne is the better player, period.
He is the better player. Yeah, he is the better player. I know that, like, complete. But, like, with Osa already on the line, I mean, I think about passing situations, that would be fantastic.
He's better than Osa, too.
Yeah, he's going to be better than Osa, but having him and Osa together with the defensive end and passing situations would be outstanding. But one of our main weaknesses.
Let me ease your guys up because I think people are maybe we're looking at Deron Payne wrong here. Deron Payne is a 6'3", 320-pound tank. We're not talking about a guy that's 6'1", 287.
Right.
He's a guy that can deal with doubles. He can guy that can penetrate. He's a guy that can push the pocket. He's a guy that can redirect. Like, he is one of the best defensive tackles in the National Football League. You got the Aaron Donalds, you got the Chris Jones, you got the Jonathan Allens, the Jeffrey Simmons, Deron Payne. Like, he's in after AD and Chris Jones. I think he's in that conversation with those with the rest of those tiers. So maybe I should have put some film on or something, but Deron Payne is that guy.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I agree with what you're saying. I know wholeheartedly. As far as from like a pure overall standpoint, he's in the same class with those guys. But what I'm talking about is strictly against just the run, because that was our biggest weakness, and that's the whole reason why we traded for Hankins. And so, if he's going to be equal to Hankins against the run, I didn't look at Washington's defense. I don't know how were they against the run having them there.
I don't know.
You know what I mean? Like,
yes. So I here's the thing. That aspect when you talk about total run defense this happened a couple years ago. That aspect you kind of got to look at the rest of the team, right? Because let's use the Cowboys for instance. When the Cowboys were not good against the run in the first half of the season, at least I came on here and said, look, the defensive tackles are not these disruptors, but they weren't your biggest problem. Your linebackers were, right?
Okay.
So I'm not going to seriously say I studied the Washington football people every game. I watched like 4 games film wise from them during the season, and Deron Payne and Allen always stuck out to me. Their linebackers didn't, so there's that.
I just don't want to spend $19 million a year on a guy that is going to just come in and be a little bit more significant of a pass rusher than Osa is. You know what I mean? Like, if he's a complete defensive tackle that can stop the run, help with the linebacker, stop the run, and keep our defense, and is an upgrade over Hankins, then absolutely, yeah, let's sign him. Okay. But I don't know how you feel about that. That's just my opinion.
I would be elated if the Cowboys got Deron Payne. I think we're being a bit conditioned here, thinking of money because of who we are as Cowboy fans. If you eliminate the money, you would 100% do dances and backflips to have a guy like Deron Payne in the middle of your defense. You have not had a guy like Deron Payne in the middle of your defense since Jay Ratliff. And if you're super concerned that he's not going to help against the run, well, Osa just becomes a rotational pass rusher. I would not stop myself from signing a guy like him because of Osa Odigizua. Nope, not at all. So,
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's my only thing is I don't want our run defense to suffer, especially knowing that we're going to have to go against the
But does it
Eagles.
have to? I don't think it has to. You can. I mean, why not bring back Hankins too? I mean, I don't think Hankins is going to cost you a ton.
Yeah, that would be great. Yeah, if we could get both, then I'm 100% on board for that.
Or
like you said, Hankins
a Hankins type, right? I'm not saying Hankins is the only run defender out there, but go out and get another Hankins type. So there's multiple ways to go at this.
Yeah, because like Bohanna was supposed to be that guy, and he wasn't. The guy that we cut, that Ridgeway, I think was his name, that signed with Washington. Those guys did not pan out. They were supposed to be like one technique's greater stopping the run, but like Hankins really did the job for us, and so I saw a vast improvement in our run defense when we got him.
Yep.
So
me too.
Yeah, I mean, if we could bring both of those guys back, then that would be great. I don't think it'll happen because, like you said, Jerry.
Yeah, we're probably in fantasy land right now, but that's all we got. It's off season. Some things are going to be a bit fantasy land, but yeah.
Yeah, I would definitely be on board for it, man.
Yeah,
for sure.
All right, man. Hey,
man.
Good call. Appreciate you, man.
Appreciate it.
Maybe I should have did it today. I was trying to lean more towards our guys, but once we do our Stephen Jones criteria, if you guys remember how we did those shows last year, we had the 3 guys that fit the Stephen Jones criteria. Then I had the guy that is going to cost you a little bit more money, but is worth it. Whenever we do DTs, we'll bring some film to the table, some breakdowns, and I think it'll ease people that are a little worried on Deron Payne. Like Deron Payne's he's a man. He's a goddamn grown ass man. And I get the money concerns because we are conditioned in Dallas, right? Like, hey man, this is a lot of money. I feel you. But we talking about a crucial position too. I think interior D line, like, you get one of them dudes in the middle, man, you can really elevate, in my opinion. There's also the other side that a lot of people were talking about, B. Bird and this gentleman on the phone, where, hey, well, we can just live with our floor. We can. Listen, if you want to live with the floor, that's fine. But I'm going to find out if we can hit that ceiling first. If we can hit that ceiling first, I'm all for it. Let's go. If not, let's just settle for the floor. 862, what it is? What it do? Shaq in the building. Ain't heard from you, ain't seen in a minute, man. I hope all is well. It didn't work out for both of us in the playoffs, man, but it's good to hear from you. Wait a minute. That's been you this whole time? I don't like it. I don't like it because I didn't know that was you. You got to let me know. You should at least put Toxic 4th and 8 check down, formerly known as Shaq, the Vikings fan. But what's good, bro?
I have a couple of points I like.
They can't hear you. There you go.
So the first point I like to make, I know a couple shows ago you was talking about a USC defensive tackle that you didn't know how to pronounce his name.
Yeah, the Tuli. I can't say his name. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a Tui Pelotu.
Tui Pelotu. All right, it's not that hard.
Yeah.
Tui Pelotu.
Because I'm a USC fan, so I heard it a couple of times how the announcers pronounce it. A little bit of a breakdown on him.
Okay.
He was the only bright spot on a horrible defense. Like, if you watch USC defense, it's like you're going to get bored quick because all you're seeing is a lot of scoring and nobody's really playing any defense. But whenever you see somebody, the quarterback get sacked, it's usually Tui Pelotu, and he's good with his hands, and he's a defensive tackle. The only thing I have to say is he looks kind of small on film, but they say he's listed at 6'4", 290.
I was about to say he looked linear to me, like not a bulky DT, but a long one, kind of Chauncey Golston type.
Yeah.
Oh,
so he's kind of like I'd say a second rounder. If somebody could draft him in the second round, that'd be a perfect spot for him to go.
All right, I'm gonna have to do some more studying on Tui Pelotu.
Yeah,
it's not
now,
that hard.
The defense is a little horrible, so it's gonna get a little wonky if you watch USC defense.
Nah, I ain't gonna watch the whole defense. I'm just gonna focus on Tui.
And my second point is, so I feel like if Dallas was to take the next step, y'all would have to get that O-line back to Dak's rookie contract. When you had Travis Frederick, you had Zach Martin, Tyron Smith, because with that type of offensive line, you could do a lot of crazy plays and plays that take time to develop. And I noticed Dak likes to hold onto the ball and likes to get the big shot going.
That might change, though, with the West Coast. I think the previous offense was a vertical Air Coryell, the vertical aspect of Air Coryell, where that was the progression, right? We want the big play, and then we come back down. I don't know that's going to be the case with the West Coast. I think the ball is going to come out a bit quicker. You're going to get more mesh routes, more slants, and then behind that, and when the teams start creeping up, then you'll get your big shots, more check downs and flats and screens and whatnot, and an emphasis on probably an inside zone run game. But I don't think you're going to get the vertical aspect in this. If it's West Coast, the vertical aspect consistently in this offense.
Yeah, I understand that. Do you feel any RPOs being added, or
yeah,
is that?
Yeah, I think McCarthy, if we run this West Coast, and if you look at Brian Schottenheimer, his time in Seattle, he did some RPO stuff. I think you have to incorporate RPOs in your West Coast. I mean, McVay does it. Who's the guy? Sirianni does it. Sirianni, whatever his name is. Andy Reid. Like the RPO is a part of the NFL now. So yeah, you incorporate that.
Yeah, and the last thing I'll say is, y'all should. I know y'all get drafted running backs in the first round, but y'all should strongly consider taking Bijan Robinson.
They will. I think 100% they will strongly consider. If for whatever reason this man falls to 26, it's gonna be really hard for Jerry Jones not to turn that card in.
And that's all I have for today. I don't want to take up too much of your time.
Well, let me ask you something real quick.
Yeah.
What's the dude's name? Dalvin Tomlinson. I didn't even realize he was only signed to the 1-year deal. What was your take on Tomlinson this year? I know he got hurt. He was in and out, but what was your take on him this year? Because he's a free agent, and I'm interested.
So my take on him was it was kind of hard to evaluate him because our defensive coordinator, I don't know if you know, he got fired because
your defense.
He couldn't stop a damn fly. And, like, when DT did play, he did get interior pressure, and he was a kind of like a bright spot on the defense, kind of getting to the stopping the run and getting to the quarterback. So, but the thing with him is the injuries catching up to him, and he's not that young. So it would probably be a good 2-year deal, but that's if you're trying to win. If your window for the Super Bowl is now.
Gotcha.
Which the Cowboys it is now. So that would probably be a good signing for y'all.
All right. Hey, appreciate the Shaq.
Anytime. Take care.
You too, bro. Good stuff from Shaq. Edwards, aka the Viking fan. Yeah, I wanted to ask him about because I haven't looked at the 2023 film for Tomlinson yet, just 2022 film. I only looked at 2021 last year when he was a free agent, and I wanted him. But when we watched the Vikings film leading up, I really couldn't look at Tomlinson because he was hurt. He wasn't playing, and it was the edge guys, Hunter and Zadarius Smith, that was the focal point to me. With obviously you had to worry about the safety back there, Harrison Smith, but it was those edge guys because the interior they had lost Tomlinson, so it was intrigued because I would definitely be looking to bring him in. But if he's hurt, guy, maybe you get him cheap. Let's go. I believe 1977, 956, and 205 to round it out. 1977 was good.
It's good to hear from you, Sky. How you doing today, brother?
I'm doing well. Good morning, good sir.
Okay. I just got back late last night from the conference in Atlanta, Georgia. Driving 2 buses up there, but it was hectic.
All I got out of that was you just got back from Georgia. What's up?
Yeah. Well, I'm fixing to do another video on this. This morning, I'm gonna probably do a video about our Dallas Cowboy great history. I was looking at it was showing Super Bowl on ESPN. They were showing Super Bowls of our Dallas Cowboys and stuff.
Okay.
And I was looking at the 7-7 Dallas Cowboys. They was amazing. I was looking at the 7-8 Dallas Cowboys. They were amazing. If they would have beat Pittsburgh, that team would have been considered as the greatest Dallas Cowboy team ever because they had 58 sacks on the season that year, and they was a dynasty. I'm just hoping one of these days when we ever be that great again. I don't know. I'm a true Dallas Cowboys fan. I'm always will be. I'm not happy right now with the team, but we all know on our channels what we talk about, that all these problems we have with bad coaching, and Kellen Moore has. I'm kind of glad he's gone, but he has really made things hard for Dakota Prescott. These media people is really talking bad about that young man. I'm not happy about it. I don't like it, and I'm upset how they treat that young man. He has a great heart, a great kid, even though he has made a lot of mistakes this year with throwing interceptions that can be rectified and fixed. I think the West Coast offense would benefit him to a T. That's all I got to say. But right now, as a Dallas Cowboys fan, I'm upset with him.
Fair enough, 1977. Get it off your chest, brother. Hey, I look forward to the video though, man. Drop it in the chat next time you come on when you finish up your video about the history.
Yeah. God bless you, bro. God bless.
Indeed.
I'll talk to you later, okay?
Yes, sir. I will say this. I find it extremely... No, I don't. Let me stop. I ain't lie to y'all. I ain't gonna lie to y'all. I don't find it interesting because I know why. But I think it's funny that during Super Bowl weekend, I done saw about... I don't know how many segments about the Dallas Cowboys and Dak Prescott. How many segments? Cowboys lost 3 weeks ago. I mean, you could be talking about the Bengals. You could be talking about the Niners. You could be talking about the Bills. You know, teams that advanced. Well, Bills didn't advance. They lost in the same round. But I hadn't seen a segment about Josh Allen. You could be talking about all these other teams. Hell, you could be talking about the Super Bowl, which you know they do. But I mean, I've seen so many segments on Cowboys, on Dak, on Jerry, and it's just like,
Motherfucker, for what?
For why? Not even playing this week. They haven't played in 3 weeks. But you know, when you have that star on your helmet, you're going to get the clicks, you're going to get the engagement, you're going to get the views. So that doesn't upset me like it does 1977. It's par for the course. It's par for the course. It's what you expect when you are a player or worker, coach, whatever it is, for this organization. So that's why I don't get offended by it. I get offended when our own fan base falls for the junk, but I don't get offended by it when they do it. They don't know any better. We should. Jose.
Oh shit. Mr. Will Steele, what's up? Good morning, sir.
He said, you know I caught that, right? He said, oh shit. What's good, man?
My bad, brother. Nah, it's because you're in my pocket. I was going to say, I find it funny, brother. How the hell is Dak Prescott getting mentioned more than Tom Brady? Who's the GOAT and who's the non-elite quarterback, as they say?
You said he's getting mentioned with Tom?
No, I'm saying it's funny how they mentioned Dak Prescott and the Cowboys more than what they mentioned Tom Brady. I know he's retiring, he's getting out of the league, but hey, man, shit.
Yeah,
as you can say,
it seemed like the media just tired of Tom Brady. I think it's like, oh, thank you for retiring again. Next, it seemed to be over.
All right. I just wanted to go. I heard you talking about there, and so I wanted to put my point. But one thing I see, Will, I don't know if you see it too. I know you're talking about defense today, but my bad. Do you think we need a right tackle to bring in a right tackle and use him as a swing tackle and possibly push him to the left for the beginning of the season? But I'm saying that because right now we're out of steel, and Tyron, you never know. He went down before the season started last year. So, yeah, that's the only reason I'm skeptical about it. And I think that's a big hole that I see. We're going to probably have to fill in, I'm assuming.
So I'm gonna just be real with y'all right now as we speak in February. I got this gut feeling that Terrence Steele, and this could be because he's my second. He ain't my second cousin no more. He's my cousin. Terrence Steele, I think is going to be ready faster than we think. And when I spoke to Dr. Boothby about the differences in recovery from a MCL ACL tear to a receiver and an ACL tear to a tackle, he made me feel a little bit better about him potentially being ready sooner due to the different responsibilities on the ligaments from a receiver, right? You're doing way more cutting and turning and twisting and all types of craziness. That's not to say that tackles aren't athletic or whatever. But I don't know, man. I just feel like Terrence still attacks everything with such a fierce determination to be better. And I just think he'll be ready for the season. But if he's not, you probably have to address tackle, right? Like you got to address it anyway, because you're probably not going to bring back Tyron. If you do bring back Tyron, he's not reliable. So you still might have to address it. But I don't think you can rule out Matt Waletzko either. Maybe Waletzko can get some right tackle stuff. And maybe they sign a veteran to compete. But when you say we need a right tackle, are you looking at, high in the draft? Are you talking about signing a top end free agent? Or you just mean some depth until Steele gets back? Because I think Steele's your future over there.
I mean depth in general because, man, fuck Josh Ball, though. Man,
I'm not even including him in the situation.
I don't want to bring him up, but that's the main one. Get that shit out of here and bring someone else in, and I say let's go, dog. But that's pretty much my take for today. Will I want to say thank you to A to Z, thank you to you, thank you to Vaj. Appreciate everything y'all do, and y'all have a good day, man.
Thanks, man. You as well. Appreciate you, big dog. It's an interesting question that hasn't really been brought up. Appreciate you, Jose. And maybe it's me. Maybe we did talk tackles. We did bring up Steele, but I kind of just was like, yeah, Steele will be fine. But what if he's not ready? What if he's not ready in September? What if he goes on the PUP list? That would be when Steele get injured, y'all. December. He got injured in the Texans game. Was that December? So 9 months would be about end of training camp, beginning of the season. Maybe he won't be ready. It's an interesting conversation. I'm kind of super optimistic on it though. Maybe that's why I kind of been ignoring it. And I appreciate you for bringing it up, Jose. It might be an issue, a bit of an issue, if he's not ready. What do you do over there? Army Mom, can we tag Steele? They'll probably tag him with the restricted free agency tag. I wanted to extend him last year. Maybe they look to try to get him now. They love to do these little things. They love to get guys who got nicked up and try to get them for cheap. So maybe they'll extend him for cheap and you get out in front of it. So he got injured in December, King. So if you're injured in December, 9 months would be that August, September area, right? So 9 to 10 months. That's cutting it close. It's cutting it close. So the tag spot would be more so because he's a restricted free agent. So you can put the tender. I shouldn't use the word tag. The tender on him. And the reason why you would do that is because you get a cheap year of Steele. And you can still negotiate a contract, right, and to bring him back, I would like to get out in front of it because I think he's a rock at right tackle. I think he's your right tackle for the future. He's young. He's athletic. He's a hard worker. King Element called him a dog. Like I'm all for still moving forward. But if you wanted to kind of take a year, see how he looks with his ACL, I don't think the tender is out of the question. Although I'd like to get at it. All right, last call today, 205. What's goody? 205, you live?
What's going on, Scott?
Hey, landlord from Wakanda. What's good?
What's happening with you, man? Hey, I'm glad I was listening in, man. Like I said, sometimes I be listening in and I can't interact with the chat because I be on the job. But
I can dig it.
I'm glad I heard your B-John take, bro. Cause I mean, did you hear that interview Michael Lombardi did on 105.3 The Fan?
No, sir. Was he talking about Robinson?
Man, he was talking about not in particular, but he called your boy Kelly Moore joystick. Say he called plays like he been in his basement playing Madden.
He called him a joystick.
He had some big ammo for Kelly Moore, man. And this a former executive right here.
Hey, landlord, do me a favor. Send me that, if you can find a clip or what have you. Send me that on Twitter.
Yeah, shout out to Common Sense Lab because he sent it to me because Michael Lombardi was literally saying the same type of arguments I was just making yesterday on my show. The same ones. He was saying almost the exact same thing. That's what was crazy. And Common Sense Lab, he sent it to me. So shout out to him. But, man, he called his man joystick. He called his man joystick, Sky.
That's wild.
He said he called plays like he been playing Madden in his basement. And one thing he did mention, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, we've been saying that jokingly, but when somebody like that says it, that's interesting.
Yeah, that was a bomb drop. It was eye-opening. But one other thing he said that I want people to try to kind of reshape the way they think about this, man. Like, it is a difference between a running back, and I think when you get to a different tier, like when you start getting to the really, really talented guys, you got to start viewing them as weapons, man. I think it's a certain level you get to where you just can't be a running back no more. You know what I'm saying? Because if you just handing the ball in his belly, that's your fault. If this player is capable of doing a whole lot of other stuff. You know what I'm saying? And Michael Lombardi said the same exact thing. He said, man, he basically was talking about talented running backs. He didn't say D-John in particular, but I don't think. But basically he was like, man, it's a level where you could just make them a weapon. Like, I think Kelly Moore conditioned us to a certain degree, man, that we feel that we can't do nothing almost. You know what I'm saying? Like, we don't got faith in no creativity or actually using these weapons in a practical way. You know what I'm saying? But if we was to draft B-John Robinson and he was there at 26, I know everybody hates drafting a running back. But just imagine if you had a common sense play caller that know how to utilize him, and you actually feature this man
as a
in
dual
an
threat.
Offense like a West Coast offense.
As a dual threat, yeah.
Man, Scott, this dude had 0 drops as a running back, and he had like 50-some catches. Like I seen,
he's a dual threat guy.
I was evaluating receivers that had drops. I was evaluating receivers that had 5 and 6 drops. Know what I'm saying? I think Haya had like 5 drops. Tank Dale had like 9, and it's a running back with 0, and he was utilized in the passing game. So when you think about the West Coast offense and a real creative OC that can actually use these players, just imagine putting B-John in the slot or doing wheel routes out the backfield or check downs with yak ability. Like, man, if you actually use this man with some intentions, bro, he could be a weapon, not just a running back. If you sit up there and just hand the ball to his belly, that's your fault.
That sounds
you see what I'm saying?
That sounds like Tony Pollard to me. That sounds like Tony Pollard.
That's what I'm saying. It's another level of back that you get to.
I don't know how many times we came on this damn show and I just was, Tony Pollard not using the passing game. Tony Pollard, like
We've been begging Kellen Moore.
And we had this conversation yesterday when we were talking about Tony Pollard and Ezekiel Elliott. I can justify money spent on that type of money spent or capital, whatever you want to call it, if he's going to be utilized in a dual threat manner. I can't justify it if he's not going to be. And when it comes to Bijan, it's not about the talent. I said this on Vacha Show, and I continue to say it. You ain't going to find me being mad if we take Bijan Robinson at 26. I mean, the dude is an absolute beast. Like, well, who can be upset about getting a player of that caliber? I think where people, the drawback is at 26. The drawback is it's a running back. I get it. It's the value, and you're probably going to get your 4 years, and then you look to move on. And people want to look at first round picks, and they want to have them for longer than 4 years. So I get that aspect of it. But I will not come on a draft show and be like, oh my God, we took Bijan Robinson. We are going to stink. Yeah. No, the dude is going to absolutely ball out for like 4 or 5 years or whatever it is on that contract. And then you come to that decision, right? Now, do I sign him, a guy who's probably got a ridiculous amount of touches in that time period, or do I move on? But that's something for the future, right? That's if you're looking at it from a long-term standpoint. But the dude is an absolute freak. There's no doubt about it. So if you took him, you're taking a damn good player, probably the best player on the board. It'll probably make some people mad. But, I mean, he's like you said, he's a weapon. So
you got to think you almost in the second round, Scott.
Yeah.
And you got a potential star.
I don't think he's going to be there. I don't think he's going to be there at 26. I mean, this whole
I don't think so either right now.
Yeah, this whole Cowboys taking him. I don't think that's going to happen. If he falls to 26, you're talking about a top, 5 to 10 talent in this draft falling to 26. That is unheard of.
Insane. But yeah, that's all I wanted to do, man. Holler at you, man. I ain't want to change the subject too much, you know what I'm saying? But I did want to holler at you.
Send me that audio, though.
Oh, yeah, I got you. I'm going to send it to you. I don't know how to inbox people on Twitter, man. I'm an old man. I just joined Twitter, but I'll try to do it. I'll try to pull it off.
Okay, Boomer.
yeah, this thingamajig. You know what I'm saying?
This whatchamacallit.
Yeah. I'm lost on that, man.
Appreciate you, big dog.
But I appreciate it, though.
What I'll do is I'll hit you up in the DMs. You can hear me. I'll hit you up in the DMs and we'll get the conversation started. Landlord from Boomerville. Landlord said, I don't know how to do the DMs, dog. Gotta meet me at the trap house. I'm gonna come through the trap house maybe today if you go live today, and I'll drop. I'll have you just drop it. Oh yeah, man. Look. I don't want people to get this confused about the Bijan Robinson thing. I don't even know who's gonna be on the damn board. But if he is there, 100% Jerry Jones and them boys is gonna talk about it. And if he's selected, I don't want Cowboys Nation to get all up in arms. Dude is a fantastic player, one of the best players in the country. I think the conversation shifts when you start talking about, well, the future. Well, what about second contracts? What about running backs? And I get it. I personally would go elsewhere. But if he's taken, don't be mad. All right, that'll be it for the calls. Good stuff today. Let me get to these super chats. Jamar Gibbs, another one. Someone sent you the clip. All right, so somebody sent it to me. Let me go see DJ. Appreciate you. Is it Lucius? Am I saying that right? I'm gonna check this out as soon as we get off. Appreciate you. Maybe we'll talk about that in the opening tomorrow in the roundup. I got DJ's super chat. Oh no, I didn't. Appreciate you, DJ. Let me get that
super chat.
He says, if you eliminate the money, would you go wide receiver or DT if play, production, and impact were the same elite level? Ooh, that's a fun question. Let me say that again. Maybe we'll get the bomb squad to chime in. If you eliminate the money, would you go wide receiver or DT if you're going to get equal play, production, and impact at an elite level? let's talk about for the Cowboys. I'm guessing that's what you mean, DJ. I would go receiver. I ain't say it with my chest, did I? Yeah. I think I'm good with that. I think I'm gonna go receiver because now you're telling me I get an elite level receiver to go with my other Pro Bowl receiver in a West Coast offense that helps out the quarterback and the receiver. So I'm gonna be able to score a lot of points probably, right? And then that allows my DTs to tee off and whatnot. And I don't got to worry about money, but we're talking about elite level players. Yeah, I think I'll go receiver. DT says James. DJ said no base in your foot. I ain't saying it with my chest, man, because I'm thinking, I hear elite. I'm like, well, what about, is Aaron Donald? We talking about Aaron Donald? But I'm gonna go receiver. Receiver Lake Show. Adriana says receiver. DMV look like overwhelmingly receiver. For this team, receiver, DA, in general, defensive tackle. Unless it's Aaron Donald. That's what I'm thinking. Like, I'm talking about Aaron Donald, but Aaron Donald not elite. Aaron Donald all world. He's not elite, all world. I also wonder this. So Cool Hands Lou sent me that. Appreciate it, Cool Hands Lou. I often see Danny say this all the time, Danny. And maybe you can call in tomorrow. Probably should have today. Surprised you didn't. You constantly came at Dan Quinn about the run defense and the Cowboys about the run defense. But when you go look at the playoffs, the Cowboys were one of the best run defenses in the playoffs. So it feels like Dan Quinn figured out how to get the run defense to be at the very least respectable. And then James said he wants to stop the run. I mean, everybody wants to stop the run. I get that. If the idea is to bring guys in to just strictly be run stoppers, then I don't know that you go get a Deron Payne, right? You want to spend the money. That's what DJ was talking about and B Bird was talking about. Like if your building process is, hey, look, I don't need to get a game wrecker at defensive tackle. And the other guy, I don't think it was DJ, it was another guy. I don't need a game wrecker at DT. I just want to get some guys that can stop the run and then give me a couple pass rushy DTs and let's get by. Then yeah, I don't know that you go get the Deron Paytons, excuse me, of the worlds. But if you said I want to get a game wrecker, and we'll build around him on that interior, and that's how you kind of start your defense or build your defense, then you do want to go get that Deron Payne, that Chris Jones, Jeffrey Simmons, AD, Jonathan Allen type. So it really is about your approach, I think. Dexter Lawrence snapped Black Yoda. I wanted him coming out of college, but he snapped this year for sure. And, you know, when you bring in a defensive coordinator like Wink, I think Wink got the best out of Dexter Lawrence this year. Yeah, he snapped. Aaron and Micah, yeah. I think we got the rest. Matt dropped a couple. Appreciate you, Matt. We read Smoke 14s earlier, and I think we got yesterday's towboat tie. So, man, good stuff today. I'm glad y'all stuck with me. I know we were supposed to do interior D-line yesterday. We did it today. Run it back if you missed it and you're just joining. Tomorrow, we'll round out the week with one more hindsight series. And then next week, we'll finish up and maybe mix in some free agent talk as the combine starts to roll around here soon. Usually when the combine rolls around, that's when it almost turns into strictly draft talk. I shouldn't say strictly because free agency actually comes up. But that's when the draft talk will pick up here on the channel. But we're still doing, as Reek would say, the exit interviews of the season. We got to slow roll all this, man. Y'all know how the offseason is, man. It's long as hell. So stick with me, Cowboys Nation. Appreciate the calls. Appreciate the donations. The chat was on fire, as always. The true diehard fans. The Bomb Squad.
Bomb Squad!
That y'all are. Join me later on the Vosh Lombardi live show. And then Mauricio Rodriguez will be on for the final show of the week. A to Z Sports Prime Time. Check out his articles, Matt's articles, Shane's, Cole's, all of our fantastic writers on AtoZSportsDallas.com, and hit me up on Twitter at Skywalker Steel. I'm going to go check out this interview, and maybe we'll talk about it tomorrow. See what Michael Lombardi had to say. With that said, I'm going to press this button. Appreciate y'all. Who ain't getting a PS5? I got to buy my son a PS5 for Christmas. What's up with these prices, man? It's ridiculous. I ain't a gamer no more, so I don't know. We out of here. Love you.